Hello, I'm Harry Riley. Welcome to Harry's 10-Minute Tales. This is called Dead Lucky by Harry Riley. That's the 5th game of chess I've won on the trot, Graham. Are you sure you're okay? I don't know. You seem so preoccupied these days. It's not like you at all. Normally I'm lucky to win 1 in 3. I've not upped my game, so you're either throwing them on purpose or something's seriously upsetting you. So come on, why don't you tell your Uncle Bert all about it? Graham adopted a pained expression and shrugged undecidedly. You're right, of course, Bert. There is something. Only trouble is, I don't know how to begin. And you wouldn't believe me if I told you. Nobody would. It's so crazy. I've not been sleeping so well lately. Bert stood up and placed a comforting hand on the younger man's shoulder. If I can help at all, you only have to say. Perhaps a drop of port might help you relax a bit. Settle those nerves. It was late evening, and the two men were alone in the front room of Bert Higgins' cottage home in the Derbyshire village of Oxley Moor. Sitting back and quietly sipping the ruby wine, Graham slowly began to unwind. It all began 2 weeks ago at Shepley Wood, Bert interjected. You mean the cemetery? Yes, of course. I go there regularly to replace the flowers on Mother's grave. It was as I stood up and turned to leave that I thought I saw a slight movement out of the corner of my eye. The place was deserted that afternoon, and at first I thought it must have been a trick of the light. The sun kept coming out from behind heavy clouds. My exit path swept around those big old Victorian monoliths, you know, the ones with angels' wings and such like. A few yards on, I got a tingling feeling at the back of my neck. Spinning round, I saw a figure, standing quite still in the distance behind me. It was a man in deep shadow, so I couldn't get a clear view of his features. There was something very unsettling about the way he stood. He must have realised I'd seen him, for without speaking a word, he raised one hand and slowly beckoned me towards him, like this. Graham raised his left arm and bent his hand palm inwards towards his own face. I don't know why, but I felt compelled to do his bidding. We turned a corner with him still keeping a good distance ahead, and then he stopped beside a shiny black headstone and pointed at it. By the time I got there, he had gone, and I was left staring at the carved wording. My blood ran cold, for the message inscribed bore my name, date of birth, and death. Here lies the body of Graham Mortimer, sadly taken on the anniversary of the 35th year of his life. It was me. My birthday comes up next week. Since then he's been dogging my footsteps. Every time I go outside I see him. I call out, "Who's there? Show yourself." But he's always in shadow and never answers. And I'm going out of my mind. I don't know what to do. Bert shook his head at a loss of what to advise. Perhaps if you had a word with the doctor, he might give you a sedative, something to help you sleep. Graham mumbled his thanks, drank up and said it was time he went home. He lived just a short way across the village. He did go to the doctor next day, collecting a tranquilizer prescription. But on the morning of his birthday, he was really a bag of nerves. Switching on the wireless for the news, he glanced at the clock fearfully. This is it. The day I'm doomed to die. The radio announcer's voice droned on, eventually cutting through his thoughts, as he heard his own surname being spoken. A local man, Geoffrey Mortimer, died in the early hours today in a tragic car accident. His wife escaped unhurt in the crash, but she claims that as their car rounded a bend at speed, a man stood in the middle of the road, beckoning them on. They couldn't see his face, but he caused them to swerve into a ditch to avoid him, and afterwards he'd gone. A fortnight later, and Bert Higgins remarked that Graham was once more cheerful. and back on winning form. You're right, Bert. It's such a relief. A few days after my birthday, I visited Mother's grave again, and then went on to view what I'd taken to be my own epitaph. The stone was no longer there, but wreaths covered a freshly dug mound of soil. The spirit had got it wrong. I'm not married, and he'd mistaken me for another guy with the same surname. Bert smiled. I always said you're dead lucky. End.